I want to lift up praise myself right now. Diane, when did you come here? How long you been around Step 7?
February of 2013.
Really?
January or February, you guys had just got the grant.
Okay. I just want to thank the Lord for what He does in our lives. You guys, most of you know, Cayenne has had a year from hell, and she's sober today.
Amen.
That means everything to me. You know, the thing that's really neat about it too is even through all this stuff she's been going through, I haven't been real worried about her.
Yeah.
And that's because she walks with the Lord. Way to be, sweetie.
Thank you.
Something else I want to bring up right now. There's a young man over at the Parker Hospital. His name is Brett. And if you could, please lift him up in your prayers. I met him last week. He was in the intensive care. He's a heroin addict. He's been using dirty needles. He has a very serious infection in his heart and in his lungs. He's gotten a little better these last couple days. I was over there last night, in fact, and we had a real nice discussion. He's going to be there for 5 weeks, and which means I have a very captive audience there. So keep Brett in your prayers. I feel confident that one of these days he's going to bless this room with his presence, and maybe even one of our houses, Brett. Then Peter came to Jesus and asked, "Lord, how many times shall I forgive my brother when he sins against me? Up to 7 times?" Jesus answered, "I tell you, not 7 times, but 77 times. Some other versions of the Bible say what there? 70 times 7. 490 times you're supposed to forgive a brother who sins against you. What's Jesus telling us here? Our forgiveness should be unlimited. We are to forgive. And I want to throw it out there right now. Why is it so important that we be forgiven?
If we don't forgive, we can't be forgiven.
If we don't forgive, we won't be forgiven?
So you can heal.
Pardon me?
So you can heal.
So you can heal? Okay. Kevin?
So you can get rid of your resentments and let the spirit of the sunlight in.
Resentments, big word.
So Christ dying wasn't in vain.
So the Christ dying wasn't in vain. Wow.
And we're supposed to love our brothers.
Amen. Amen.
And we're supposed to have a big desire to be like Jesus.
Amen.
If you look at God and Jesus, they will always forgive.
Yeah. Last week I preached on purity. I believe that forgiveness is part of a pure heart, right?
Yes.
Question for you all this morning. Who is it that you need to forgive today? And this is a message I need to hear. That's always good. I need to learn this lesson on forgiveness. Ask my bride. Who is it that you need to forgive today? And you know, Kevin just mentioned the word resentments. The last thing we want to be doing is carrying around resentments around here. What happens when we are resentful? We're in danger, my friend. especially at a ministry like Step 7. We're in danger of a fall. We talk sometimes around here, for those of us that have struggled with drugs and alcohol, have you ever drank at someone? I'll show you. I'll drink at you. Just watch how stupid I can get. You need to be forgiving, my friends. Who is it this very moment that you need to forgive? Let's have a prayer. Lord, we thank you. Thank you for this beautiful day. Thank you for these friends. Thank you for the Sabbath, and thank you for the cross, Lord. And right now, I just pray, as I do every Sabbath morning, that you would just speak through me. And we just love you, and we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. I believe that when it comes to preaching, most of the time, we should get to the cross at some point. Most messages should have some sort of reference to the cross of Jesus Christ. Usually, I'll finish there. Today, I want to start and finish there. Paul tells the church in Corinth, in 1 Corinthians 2:2, he says, I came preaching Christ and what? Him crucified. I came preaching Christ and Him crucified. Today I want to start right at the cross of Calvary. Turn please to Luke 23. Luke 23. Jesus just told us in Matthew 18 that we are to forgive. And forgive and forgive and forgive. Luke 23. And I will start in verse 32. It says, 2 other men, both criminals, were also led out with him to be executed. When they came to the place called the Skull, there they crucified him, along with the criminals, one on his right, the other on his left. Jesus said, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. And they divided up his clothes by casting lots. I believe that this is the best illustration in the history of mankind on forgiveness, folks. Jesus has just been nailed to a cross. And he looks down at the men who did this to him, and he lifts up a prayer to his Father. And he says, Father, forgive them. You know, I have to think that his Father heard that prayer, and I would have to think that his Father answered that prayer. And I have to wonder, where would we be as individuals? Talk about our salvation. Where would we be as a church if Jesus didn't have this attitude right here, my friends? We would all be in a big mess, folks. This is what it's all about right here. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Who is it today that you need to forgive? And you know, we might look at that in kind of 3 ways. Is it somebody in particular that we need to forgive? Maybe it's God himself. Are you upset at God? Are you mad at God? Do you have one of those victim mentalities Woe is me? Maybe it's the person in the mirror. Maybe I need to forgive myself. Maybe it's all three. But there's no choice in the matter here. My friends, as Christians, as followers of Christ, we are compelled to forgive. 7 times, 70 times. Maybe, keep a running list. You won't get there. Let's look at a story. Wonderful story. Back in Genesis, first book of the Bible. Genesis chapter 37. Wonderful illustration on forgiveness. Genesis 37. And I'll preface the story here a little bit for you. We had the children of Israel, the children of Jacob, 12 boys. One of the younger boys goes by the name of Joseph. And Joseph's a great guy. He gets a little braggadocious here. He has these dreams. And he shares these dreams with his brothers. And his brothers don't like them. They don't like these dreams because Joseph's pretty much telling them a time's coming when I'm going to be above you guys. But don't get me wrong, these dreams are also prophetic. They come true. So he tells these brothers of his that a day is coming when you're going to be subservient to me. Okay? And he goes out to find his brothers. They're out taking care of the flocks. And he comes upon a man and he asks him, have you seen my brothers anywhere? Let's, Genesis 37, go to verse 17. And he's talking with this man here. The man says to him, they moved on from here, the man answered. I heard them say, let's go to Dothan. So Joseph went after his brothers and found them near Dothan. But they saw him in the distance, and before he reached them, they plotted to kill him. Here comes that dreamer, they said to each other. Come now, let's kill him and throw him into one of these cisterns, and say that a ferocious animal devoured him. Then we'll see what comes of his dreams. When Reuben heard this, he tried to rescue him from their hands. Let's not take his life, he said. Don't shed any blood. Throw him into this cistern here in the desert, but don't lay a hand on him. Reuben said this to rescue him from them and take him back to his father. Verse 23. So when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped him of his robe, the richly ornamented robe he was wearing. And they took him and threw him into the cistern. Now the cistern was empty. There was no water in it. As they sat down to eat their meal, they looked up and saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead. Their camels were loaded with spices, balm, and myrrh, and they were on their way to take them down to Egypt. Judah said to his brothers, what will we gain if we kill our brother and cover up his blood? Come, let's sell him to the Ishmaelites and not lay our hands on him. After all, he is our brother, our own flesh and blood. His brothers agreed. Disgusting story. His own brothers plot to kill him first and then say, nah, maybe it'd be better if we just sold him. Let's profit from it. And we see Reuben in verse 21. It says when Reuben heard this, Reuben goes about his thinking. Reuben's the oldest of the sons. At least he has a little bit of a pure heart here, but he doesn't do enough. He's the oldest brother. He should have stood up. We see Judah, who's actually the fourth oldest son. He's the fourth child of Leah. He's actually Jesus Christ came from the tribe of Judah. But look at what he says. This is awful. Verse 27. He says, "Come, let's sell him to the Ishmaelites and not lay our hands on him. After all, he is our brother." You know, what a guy. You know, what a guy. Our own flesh and blood. Rather than kill my little brother, let's just go ahead and sell him into slavery into Egypt, which is what they did. Keep this story in mind for 2 seconds because we want to finish it in a minute here. I struggled a little bit with this message this week because forgiveness is such an important lesson for us. There are so many places you can go to teach on forgiveness. There are so many illustrations, personal illustrations, where I've needed to be forgiven, where I needed to forgive. I kind of had a tough time. But I wanted to share, well, actually, just turn to Matthew 6. Turn to Matthew chapter 6. I could stand up here all day long having us go from verse to verse and the lessons there on forgiveness. Matthew chapter 6. What do we find in Matthew chapter 6? Anybody tell me?
15.
Pardon me?
15.
Beatitudes.
The Beatitudes? No, that's chapter 5.
Oh, I thought we were, okay.
Matthew chapter 6.
The Lord's Prayer.
The Lord's Prayer finds its home in Matthew chapter 6. Jesus gives a little teaching on prayer, and then he actually says, this is how you should pray. Now that doesn't mean, that's the only way we should pray. He gives us a wonderful example of prayer. And I have to believe that Jesus knew that this prayer over the centuries was probably going to be the most famous prayer in the Christian church, the Lord's Prayer. Look at verse 9. These are red letters. Jesus says, "This then is how you should pray. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread. Forgive us our debts or trespasses, as we also have forgiven our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen." Right in the heart of probably the most famous prayer there is what?
Forgiveness.
Forgiveness, my friends. And today I stand up here, and the reason I asked at the beginning, why is it we need to do this? It's imperative for our own peace of mind, for getting rid of the resentment in our lives, that we forgive. The Lord knows how we should best live our lives. And he says over and over and over again, we need to forgive. And today that might simply also mean we need to forgive ourselves, you guys. We talk a lot about regret in the past. Paul in Philippians chapter 3, he says, "I forget the past and I move forward." I move forward. I press on. We need to forgive ourselves. Let's turn back to our story. Turn to Genesis. Genesis 45. And I'll bring you up to date here a little bit. It's a few years later. Joseph has been sold into slavery, into Egypt. There's a famine taking place. And Israel, Jacob, has sent his sons to Egypt to get food. In the meantime, Joseph's gone through some pretty tough situations. He's been wrongly accused of a sin. He's been thrown in jail. Wrongly accused. He ends up in an Egyptian jail, prison. He's blessed. The Lord blesses him in prison. He gets out of prison. the Lord blesses him in his life in Egypt. He rises up to the second in command of all of Egypt. It's like he's the vice president of Egypt. He answers to no one but Pharaoh, and he's also there to give Pharaoh counsel, which he does a lot of. His brothers come to try to get food from him. And they're standing before him, and they don't recognize him. He's probably speaking in a different tongue by now. Maybe he's done something to hide his identity from them. Maybe the Lord has done something to hide his identity from his brothers. But he is standing in the presence of his brothers, and they're there looking for food. Let's start in verse 1. 45 verse 1. It says, "Then Joseph could no longer control himself before all his attendants, and he cried out, 'Have everyone leave my presence!' So there was no one with Joseph when he made himself known to his brothers. And he wept so loudly that the Egyptians heard him, and Pharaoh's household heard about it. Joseph said to his brothers, 'I am Joseph! Is my father still living?' But his brothers were not able to answer him because they were terrified at his presence." Keep your finger right there. He sends everybody out of the room except for his brothers. And then he breaks down and says, "I'm your brother Joseph. Is our dad still alive?" The last time these guys have seen him, they were doing what?
Selling.
They were selling him. They were talking about, what are we going to do? Are we going to kill him? Or are we going to sell him? I tell you what, Joseph's a hero of mine. Joseph gets it. Joseph understands. Joseph learns his lessons quickly. It says they were terrified at his presence. I'll bet they were. Think about it. We need some food, and oh, can you forget what we did a couple of years ago? Powerful story. Let's read on. Notice Joseph here. Look at verse 4. "Then Joseph said to his brothers, 'Come close to me.' When they had done so, he said, 'I'm your brother Joseph, the one you sold into Egypt. And now, do not be distressed, and do not be angry with yourselves for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you.'" Keep your finger there, folks. Notice what happens here. He says it again, "I am your brother." But look at what he does right out of the gate here. He forgives them. But he also does what? He tells them to forgive themselves. You guys. He says, "Do not be angry with yourselves for selling me here, because it was to save lives." Joseph gets it. All of the struggles, everything that he's been through, God was behind it, and God had a purpose for it. And Joseph sees that. And he doesn't hold on to any of these resentments. How resentful would you be if you were Joseph? Tell me about it. He says, "Don't be mad at yourselves. This is all God's work." Joseph learns his lessons, and he learns them quick, my friends. Today's lesson is on forgiveness. Look at verse 6. "For 2 years now there has been famine in the land, and for the next 5 years there will be plowing and reaping. But God sent me ahead of you to preserve for you a remnant on earth, and to save your lives by a great deliverance." Joseph gets it, folks. Today's lesson is about forgiveness. And I need to mention it, and I need to be careful here. There's a difference between forgiving and forgetting. Okay? If I walk up to a stove and that stove is hot, and I don't know that it's hot, and I touch it and it burns me, that's not my fault. If I go back to that stove again and touch it, what's the story there? That's on me, okay? Today's lesson is about forgiveness. We need to forgive, folks, but that doesn't mean we need to forget, and I want to be very careful here. I need to forgive everybody. I need to forgive myself. But if you continually get burned by someone, that doesn't mean you need to stay in a relation there. Now, I'm not talking about marriages. Don't get me wrong there. We fight for our marriages. With everything that we have, we fight for our marriages. But I need to forgive everybody. But if I continue to get burned and burned and burned, it's okay to say, you know what, this doesn't work for me. I love you and I forgive you, but you know what? I'm going to stay away from you. We need to be forgiving. And you know, we talk around here at Step 7 about learning lessons. And we mentioned the lessons keep coming until what? Until we learn the lesson. Jesus will talk to you in a whisper. And if you don't listen to the whisper, he'll probably raise his voice a little bit. And if you don't listen to that, you know what he might do? He might give you a full-blown crisis. The lessons keep coming until we learn the lesson. Today I would ask you to search your heart. Who is it that you need to forgive today? Jesus was nailed to the cross. And he says a prayer for the very people that did it. He says, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Do you think that he might forgive you? And do you think that he might call upon you to forgive others? Let's pray. Father God, we love you. We thank you for this lesson. Help us. Help us as individuals. Help us as a church body to take it to heart. We are to forgive 7 times 70 times. Infinite, Lord. Help us to be loving. And Lord, a special thanks for your prayer from the cross. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And Lord, there are many times in our lives that we act in ignorance. And I thank you for your forgiveness. I pray, Lord, that you would continue to show us the truth, that we might not stick our hand back on that stove again. Lord, thank you, and we love you. And as we always do, we